The Pinto can be used many different ways as an inline anchor. A typical setup on a single rope might be to place an inline knot such as this alpine butterfly. And now we can clip the Pinto into that and run our climbing line through the Pinto. Okay, that's great. One thing about having a carabiner at a distant point is that we can't control it when it's that far away from us. So if I had a stem here and I'm moving about the tree and this happens to get rotated and now all of a sudden that gate is smacking up against this branch or stem. So one thing we can do to avoid that, because the Pinto has the capability of connecting directly to a textile, here I've got the Pinto with the spacer. Anytime we run a rope like this, we need to use the spacer because we don't want to squeeze these side plates together. So I can install this with the prusik directly on the line and then just back it up with that stopper knot. And now run my climbing line through. Okay, great. Now from a distance, it doesn't matter what happens to this. I've got nice rounded side plates from the hot forging. This can move in any direction, bump up against anything, and even if my rope tends to run against the side plates, those aren't sharp edges and they're not going to damage the rope. If you don't happen to have a spacer, you can also splice or tie directly to each side plate independently. Okay, but it's important to keep that loaded straight up and down. You wouldn't want to put it in a position where you're loading it sideways or trying to pull those side plates apart. So here's just yet another option. Here I've got it set up on a small Pinto. And the cordage size diameter right now, these are just bits and pieces I have around the house here. So I'm not going to really get into what diameter to use. Use what's appropriate for the situation and what's strong enough. Now if you're a real nutcase, you can pre-install the Pinto with a spacer on your access line and then tie an inline knot with only the Pinto in it. That's super minimal, but probably not very practical. However, say I want to use the terminal end of my access line to haul my climbing line into position, a remote anchor or floating false crotch. Here I've got a figure of 8 backed up and I've got the Pinto installed directly onto the terminal end of my access line with the spacer in place. Keep in mind that these spacers have an inside diameter of only 10 millimeter, so this would probably only work on 10 millimeter rope. A typical setup for inline anchors in a doubled line would be the 2 revolvers in the alpine butterflies. Oppose the gates and your climbing line runs through the revolvers. When you're done climbing, pull that climbing line out and you can retrieve these over the crotch. Well, that's a great system. However, we're still left in that situation where these revolvers can perhaps load funny against a stem or branch up top. Now, one way we can use the Pinto as an inline anchor on a doubled access line and still have it retrievable is I'll use my spacer here and install this directly on a prusik. And then on this leg of line, I'll install a slightly larger alpine butterfly, larger loop that is. And now I can drop the Pinto through there. And I basically just created a giant pulley saver. Or however close I am to the top, doesn't matter. So now I can climb off of the Pinto, and with my weight here, there's no way this prusik's going to pull through the eye. The more weight I put on, the tighter it squeezes. So when I'm finished climbing, I just pull my climbing line out, and I'm not going to be able to retrieve it if I pull on the Pinto side. I just need to pull down on the I side, and that Pinto just comes right out. Now I can shift ends or whatever I want to do, send that alpine butterfly up over the crotch and retrieve my access line. Also, it should be mentioned, regardless of configuration we happen to be using, we can create hauling systems by attaching various hardware or software to the beckets. Both the large Pinto and small Pinto have a fully rated becket, and because the hot forging has allowed these soft edges, we can connect rope directly to that becket. So here I've just got a Dyneema sling. I can connect that in a basket configuration. I can girth hitch that, provided that provides enough room for the sheave to keep spinning. Otherwise, hardware is fine too. Quick links, carabiners. So here I've got a revolver I'll just place in the becket. With my climbing line here running through the large Pinto, I take the tail and clip it into that revolver, and now that gives me a 3-to-1 hauling system. I've got 1, 2, 3 legs at the moving block, and not only is that really great for rescue scenarios where you might need to lift someone out of a crotch or something, but it also makes your life easier as a climber when you need to ascend and move about the tree. Here I've got the small Pinto set up as part of a climbing line system. This is also how it's configured with the CE lanyard. You can see the DMM Ultra O along with the Pinto and 8mm hitch cord really keeps that streamline. Also with the becket, I can clip that termination right there, and now we're really rocking. Use it in conjunction with the hitch climber, and you've got a very organized and streamlined system for 2 climbing lines. The large or the small Pinto can be used in the M method. I prefer the large Pinto here because of the higher efficiency of the bearing. Also, if we want to use a prusik for progress capture, that can simply be clipped into the becket.